emergency bottle of water there. The altitude's a little dry mouthy here. Okay, wow, the lights. Quick show of hands. How many people have ever heard of CarMax? Wait, that's like 3/4 of the crowd, so let's hear it for advertising. Okay, so another show of hands. How many people have bought a car from CarMax? Okay. All right, so I'm counting like 5 or 6 highly intelligent people who probably know a little more than everybody else about what makes CarMax unique. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about CarMax and talk about why we are talking about this as an innovation reboot. CarMax opened our first store. We're a retailer. We sell used cars, and we're the largest retailer of used cars in the country. But when we started in 1993, we were a completely innovative concept. So we had this vision of transforming the car industry, which was known for being an awful customer experience. Man, these lights. And transforming that industry around honesty, full transparency, and fixed pricing. So no haggle pricing. And this was completely revolutionary in our industry. And in pretty much every way, it still is today. We're pretty much the only major car seller who's still operating this way. So when we launched, nobody thought this would be a success. But you fast forward 22 years, and we are a Fortune 500 company. We have $14 billion in sales. We have over 150 stores, and we're still growing. We pretty much dominate our category. We sell more cars than our next 3 competitors combined. And we're only in 63% of the country. So we have this huge runway for growth if we do nothing different. But that's actually our biggest challenge. So we are a customer experience brand. And as you guys know better than anybody, the customer is changing, right? So I think I've heard the word millennials like 17 times in about 10 minutes. Could probably make it a drinking game at this conference. Just suggesting. But at any rate, so we need to transform car buying again, and we want to be part of the transformation to make car buying resonant for the next generation of consumers. But what that's going to entail is being a leader in technology and digital and not just brick and mortar. So we need to bring all of that together. And in order to do that, we need to tap back into our kind of scrappy startup roots, and we need to operate a lot differently than we have been. So I'm going to tell you how we're doing that. So the first thing when you talk about changing a culture is you talk about what you're not going to change. So the thing we're not changing is our core DNA. So CarMax is about this. We're about integrity, honesty, and transparency. So that is absolutely at the heart of every decision and everything we do. So it drives the way we treat our customers. It drives the way we treat our associates. It drives every hiring decision. It's the reason we have this amazing culture that people love to work for. We've actually been on the Fortune 100 Best Places to Work list for 11 years in a row, which is a really pretty amazing accomplishment. So we're super proud of that. We will be very protective of this core DNA. And if anything, we're just going to use it as the anchor to innovate from here on. So while we're not changing our values, what we are going to change is how we operate internally. Okay? And so when you're a successful company and everything seems to be going well, and you're on this incredible kind of growth trajectory, it's really hard to just to change. You know, it's like a state of inertia. So in the general laws of physics, if something is in a state of inertia, you have to apply a force in order to change that trajectory. So we don't have necessarily an outside force that's forcing us to change. So we're forcing that from within. We're shocking our own system. So we're waking up our company, and we're enforcing change with a series of small shocks. And the first thing we did was we looked at our customer. We doubled down on who is our customer today and how does our brand resonate. So we partnered with Profit. They're a big branding agency. You probably know them. They were a terrific partner. We did a major brand study. And what we learned was that our brand purpose, the honesty, integrity, and transparency that I talked about, is still just as meaningful today as it ever was. But we're not connecting emotionally like we should. So we're not getting the credit for being this incredibly different, culturally different type of place with people, especially people who haven't ever shopped with us before. So if you shopped with us, like the handful of people in this room, you probably get it. We actually have, our purchaser net promoter score is 95%. So 95, that's like unheard of. That's like bigger than Apple. So I think that's a testament to how emotionally charged this purchase decision is, and how important this purchase decision is, and how bad and otherwise customer experience could be in car buying. And so when we get that right, we have like raving fans. So that's pretty amazing, but we need to connect with that with people who haven't experienced us yet. So we're making a lot of shifts in our marketing program, and we're changing the way we operate in our marketing department. So this is what the marketing department looked like a year ago. Does this look familiar to anybody? Okay, so like show of hands, how many people are still in some sort of cubicle or office environment? Yeah, okay. Either if you're not admitting it, but anyway, there's at least a third of the room, I think, maybe, from what I can tell. So today, this is what the marketing department looks like. I kind of wish there were more people in these pictures because you could get a better sense of the vibe, but you at least see that we knocked down all the walls, and we've got everybody sort of clustered together in small workspaces, and we have a whole bunch of collaboration spaces around those windows, and then team rooms and quiet zones elsewhere. But the reason we're doing this is that when we're establishing an innovation culture, there are three main things that we're going to put a premium on. And the first one is collaboration. So I will argue you cannot truly do collaboration if you're working in cubicles or individual offices. That's about individual productivity. This is about collaboration. So you've got to knock down the walls. We reorganized our web team. So quickly, I lead the web team at CarMax. So we're the group that's building out our digital experiences through our website and our apps. A couple of years ago, we were organized kind of like a shared services project execution model, where we would have our senior management team put together a roadmap for the year, and then we would marshal these project teams to execute on it, right? So it's a pretty common model, and it's a really good model if you are executionally focused, but it's not an innovation model. So what we did was we took the same group, we shook it up, and we made cross-functional, dedicated product teams. So these are small teams of about 7 people, and they are focused on, I'm going to have to go to my emergency water bottle. They're focused on owning an area of the business, and we don't tell them what to build. We just give them a clear set of goals and KPIs, and it's up to them to figure out the solutions that are going to meet it. So they're acting like a small little startup within our organization, and we're acting like the investor that's funding them. So we're clearly involved, and we're stakeholders and all that, but it's on them to build the solutions. And the only way they're going to do that is with heavy collaboration. And the next thing that we put a premium on is discovery. So this is about discovery. In an innovation culture, it's not about execution, it's about discovering what the solution is. So we had to kind of reprogram everybody that their success for them is not about building the right thing, it's about figuring out what the right thing is to build, and then only building that when you know it's right. So what we've done is we've taken these small product teams and we've given them a lot of sort of tools and new methodologies they can use to work in a very fast, lean, iterative way. So we've really embraced the principles of like lean startup, if anyone's read that book. And they use methods like design thinking and lean UX. And those are really similar methodologies. There's lots of overlap. But what it's about is not putting together a big business case and trying to get a bunch of organizational alignment around your idea and all that stuff. It's about taking an idea and quickly sketching it up or putting a prototype together or something and getting it in front of a customer. It won't be perfect at all, but you just get out there and find out if there's anything about it that resonates. And what is that? And then you iterate from there, constant iteration with customers, and you do it in hours and days, not in weeks and months. So we brought in a lot of consultants as well to help our team along, and we've been hiring and we've been bringing in people who already work this way from sort of tech startup type of companies. So that's been helping too. And the last thing we're putting a premium on is having the right technology. So the right technology will facilitate innovation, and the wrong technology will slow you down. And today here at CarMax, we are updating just about every system that powers the customer experience. We're in the middle of a major redesign and replatform of the website that will launch in a few months, hopefully. We're updating all the systems that connect the store and the online experience. We're working in data management platforms and CRM, and pretty much any system that you can think of that's customer experience related is getting a big overhaul right now. So yeah, that's a challenge because we're basically replacing the engine while we're flying the plane. And we're sort of retraining the flight crew at the same time, so it's really fun. But that's what we're doing. So what's next for us? We've been at this a couple of years. We've pretty much laid the foundation. And so what's next is building it out and scaling it up. We have about 60 open positions. So this is where I'm going to pause and have a shameless plug. If you know any great people that want to work for a great company like CarMax, we're looking to bring in 60 people in just the next few months alone. We're also working on just infusing this DNA throughout the organization. We've seen it kind of catching on and all over the organization. People are adopting these new methodologies in interesting ways to improve what they're doing. And you just sort of see this whole entrepreneurial spirit kind of firing back up. So we're going to just sort of fan those flames so that this innovation culture is part of our core DNA again. So in summary, so the first thing you want to do if you're trying to implement any kind of change, particularly cultural change, is figure out what you're not going to change. And that should be your core DNA. Understand that, articulate that, and stay true to it. The next, you're going to want to stay relentlessly focused on your customer. The customer is going to be your guidepost for keeping your brand resonant, and it's also going to be your guidepost for making sure that everything that you're developing that you think is going to delight the customer or help the customer actually is. And then last, if your company gets into a state of inertia and you want to initiate change, you shock the system from within. So we did it by using our brand study as a kind of a wake-up call that we needed to double down our focus on the customer and the new customer, the millennial customer. We did it by breaking up our workspace and blowing that up and creating a completely open environment. We did it by taking our teams and reorganizing them into dedicated product teams that really own their businesses and act like startups within our company. And we did it by updating all of our technology. So that's what I've got. Shireen, do you want to?
Yeah, I'm here.
Any questions?
I do have a question for you before we open up, and that's about hiring, because how did you guys transform, sort of, since as you were trying to sort of become more 21st century, get that DNA in, how did that change who you hired and where you hired from?
So when we were hiring, the main criteria we were looking for, number one, is we wanted people who were passionate about the kind of thing that we were doing. So we wanted people that really had a passion for these very lean, very tech startup type of atmosphere and way of working. And secondly, we wanted people who had that experience. So I would actually trade the experience for the passion if the passion was there, but I would really also want people who had experience so they could show our team the way. But third, we had to make sure they also matched our cultural DNA and had that sort of integrity and honesty, embedded within them too. So it's not easy.
No, and I think what seems really hard is, I mean, if you told a relatively young, talented, passionate individual, come work for a tech startup, I don't think there are many who wouldn't say yes.
Right.
But I think reconciling their idea of what a tech startup is with who CarMax is, because you guys aren't a young company. It's not like you were founded yesterday. Yeah. What's that hard?
I know. So like you definitely don't think of them in the same category. So it's really hard. And we're still at it. So I'm up for any advice on it. But I think we really act like a tech startup. I think the big benefit is that you can work in that same way, but you also are working for a company that's very, very stable and secure and has a lot of money to fund your crazy ideas. So it's a benefit, but usually people understand that after they meet us. Okay. So we kind of have this, once we can get them in the door, they're like, oh, wow, this is awesome. But, we really need to work on our employment brand and making sure people understand that we're about technology too.
Awesome. We have time for about one question. If there's one, I think, see you.
And great presentation. The question I have is, as the groundswell for not owning things seems to be getting a lot of attention for Airbnb, for Uber, renting bikes. I'm from Chicago, so you can rent a bike. Where does that philosophy or that mindset play in with CarMax of sharing your cars rather than buying them? For all the people that haven't bought one from you, how can we share one from you? Yeah. Thank you.
So, so that's a good question. I mean, right now we are a retailer, so we sell cars, and so whatever cars look like in the future, we'll sell those cars. If people really don't want to buy cars and they're into car sharing services or car subscription programs or anything like that. These are all ideas that bubbled all around the company, and it's just a matter of us chasing that down and figuring out if that's an interesting model for us for the future. So, you know, who's to know? I think we are building the infrastructure, though, to chase down those kinds of ideas.
Great. Anne, thank you so much. This was great.
Thanks. Thank you.
All right. So we are